everybody. Welcome to PowerHouse Fence Show, the powerest fence of shows, where we talk about fence containing power and things of that nature. Sometimes the fence is powered, but welcome, guys. This is a podcast where we talk about commercial fence business, sometimes things pertaining to tools, installation, and whatnot, a little bit of the ins and outs. We thought we have a little bit of experience, some with some catastrophe attached, and maybe you could learn from some of our mistakes or some of our knowledge. So we just hope to share our knowledge and experience with you guys. My name's Zach Shue.
I'm Dan Turbyville.
Hey, there he is.
That's me. Happy to be here. Can't wait to get this show done.
Right.
No, hold on. I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, that's
and I want it to never be done.
Well, so this is the fifth part of a series where we've been kind of peeling back the onion. That's not what I mean. Pulling back the curtain to expose a little bit of the ins and outs of our process and how we walk through job bidding, finding, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and kind of is peeling the onion too, right? Because
it is.
Every step is another layer, I guess. So we're kind of just peeling that thing back.
And at the center, we'll find
a Tootsie Pop.
Your heart.
Oh. Whose heart? Mine? Zach's probably just making fun of me because he thinks I have no heart.
No, we're gonna find it. That's what I said.
Oh,
that's why we're peeling.
It's just missing.
We're just gonna peel it back, baby.
Okay. All right, cool. So, who sponsors this show, Zach? I can never remember.
The show is sponsored by
MFC. And the shirt too, actually.
That's right. Shirt is sponsored by MFC Manufacturing, Memphis Fence Company, and some Palo. Oh, PowerHouse Fence Show. Also, we partner with Thornton Fence Consulting Group.
We do. And so there's a link to Tony's events in the description, I think. Ilaria?
Yes.
And we talked a little bit about him last week, but yeah. So that link would take you to his website so you can find out more about what they do.
Hello, howdy, hi. We are here. We are live.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a number scrolling across the bottom. If you're able to view the screen, I'll say it for you, and Dan may help me out with that. It's 901-878-4987.
Yeah.
901-878-4987.
Yep. That's it.
Cool. Got it. So feel free to call in, or if you can comment on whatever platform you're viewing on currently, we'll try to respond. And most people we respond and answer. So if we don't get to you, just hold off. It's probably because we're in mid-thought or whatever. So thank you, all listeners, all participants, and anyone who's high-fived or handshaked or said we're listening to the show.
Or just listened.
Yeah.
That's cool too. So, we've done this a little bit over a year now.
Cool.
I think like August 3rd was a year after our first podcast was uploaded. And I still can't remember the phone number.
901.
Oh, I see it on the screen right there.
4987.
You would think by now I would have it memorized, right? That's also the phone number that I give people for Simpalo.
Right.
And it still doesn't matter. I can't remember it.
That's good.
Yeah, I guess maybe.
Well, I think I was seeing that today, a part of project management is depending on certain platforms like, Google Calendar or Outlook or Monday, or using these resources that we have at our disposal to remember that stuff so that we don't rely on our brain for that, because that's an area where you can easily fail.
Yeah. So just today I was having a conversation with someone about going to jail. And I said, we kind of have this problem now because you can't remember phone numbers to call someone to come get you out of jail.
Yeah. Speaking of how long we've been doing things, I haven't been arrested in so long I can't remember when. So I think I don't know if everybody does, but I think it's a lot of people have had at least one arrest experience, at least maybe dudes in the construction industry. I don't want to be stereotypical or whatever.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
So either way, speaking for myself, I have had that altercation, and it's been a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't expect to have any in the future, which is.
I was not recently in jail. It was just a conversation that came up. And I was like, hey, how are you going to remember anybody's phone number now? So
Right.
there's
I would
that.
just get a tattoo.
That's what I said. I said, you just need to like tattoo some phone numbers on your bicep right here. So that way you can see them whenever you're getting, trying to call the phone, the
Yeah.
number of the people to do that thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So there's that. Anyways,
I've
hey,
been reading.
have you still
Yeah.
the book you talked about last week?
Yeah, but I've also my daughter is in first grade, and they're putting a lot of emphasis
mine-
on reading.
My son's in first grade.
Right. So we've been reading all of the You Can Read This books. Whatever that, that's just that's not a real thing. It's just books
Right.
kids can learn to read.
Right.
So that's been fun.
All that you can read this books.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So my son's first grade teacher was like, hey, try to. So it's kind of funny. She starts off and she's like, we're not really going to have any homework. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
But try to do this 3 times a week and do these 2 other things
No.
2 times a week.
But try to read with your kid for at least 20 minutes a day, 7 days a week. And then when they come home, they're going to bring all of the assignments they completed throughout the day. So all you have to do is go over all of those with them again and make sure that they understand everything that they messed up and why they messed it up. But we don't have any homework. So, just a few little hour and a half thing.
Yeah, nice.
So
I don't really. They're giving my daughter grades.
Oh yeah.
Are you? I don't remember this with the other kids. I have a 14 and 15-year-old, and I don't remember receiving grades in first grade.
Do they say, back in my day, we didn't even get no grades?
I don't know who they are. Who are they?
Your kids.
Oh no, they don't say that.
Oh. The people you were just talking about.
Yeah, they are uninterested in most of anything at this point in their life.
All right, so you've been reading.
Yeah. Same book. Kids' books.
Yeah.
The Actor by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Mm-hmm. The Actor by the author.
Yeah.
So I added a little note in here for the thank you listeners part. And I just said, if you want any more information about any of these things that we've talked about as we've walked through this journey of telling you our process, feel free to reach out and we'll try to answer any questions that we can.
Yes. Or if you see me in public. Yeah. Or Dan, either one of us, of course, we'll make some time for you.
Yeah.
Or if you want to be on the show.
Speaking of seeing us in public, you'll have an opportunity to see us in public just next week. Yeah, at the West Coast Fin Show.
Easily recognizable. I'll be wearing this shirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, these are affectionately called our crazy shirts. So we'll be roaming around in some crazy shirts, and we have a crazy backdrop in our booth that matches the shirts. So, no one's seen it yet. So
matches the shirts.
Yeah.
So West Coast Fin Show, booth 516, 518 in Reno, Nevada, September 5th through the 7th. That is next weekend.
Yeah. Curious to see what this is like. I've never been to the West Coast Fin Show. I think they only do it every 3 years.
And guess what? Hilaria will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whom our audience has never met unless they watch the Thanksgiving episode.
Right. There's been a couple opportunities.
So she's cool to meet.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
I get a compliment once a year and I love it.
Yeah. So I was talking to Alyssa and we came up with this funny plan that happened yesterday. And I told Alyssa, I was like, you know what we should do? We should translate all the messages that we send to Ilaria in Teams to Italian.
Bad. I thought it was actually a problem of my Teams because I got a message because she did it. In case you didn't know, she did it. And my Teams said something after she typed in Italian. Do you want to translate the whole thing? And I said, no. But it kept translating in Italian. And I thought it was my Teams. And I was like, look, I'm just going to call Will. He does IT. He's going to fix this. And then Alyssa finally confessed.
So translating all your messages.
She was freaking out and thought that she changed some setting or whatever to where it was translating to Italian for. It was pretty fun.
That's cool.
I didn't know you were also into that.
Yeah.
I like this. This is funny.
Yep. So I don't think I've really talked about this on the show, but I've been helping working on the AFA Operations Management School.
You've mentioned it, but you kind of called it a thing.
A thing? Yeah, it is a thing.
So I've been doing this thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah, yep. So a few of us have been working on it and it's kind of all been submitted and they're kind of going and taking the gibberish that I submitted and turning it into something that actually is teachable right now. But there's like a soft launch of that thing that's happening. I can't remember what it is. Something on the East Coast, like September 17th and 18th at some AFA event out there. We're not even good at talking about the events that we have been to, let alone the ones that I have not been to. So I'll try to figure out what it is real quick. But anyways, I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be beneficial. It's a ton of information in there. It's like trying to capture, I mean, it's trying to capture a lot of information in a very short period of time. But the cool thing is a lot of it's going to be online and you will have access to the online stuff. I think after the class is done. And so if you do sign up for it, you can always go back to that as a reference, right? So, anyways, so yeah, soft launch later. And then I think like the full, complete, final version of it is supposed to roll out probably at Fence Tech next year.
Cool. Good deal. I'm going to pause for a moment and say, what's up, Craig Eubanks? Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Welcome in.
How's it going, Craig? So,
yes, I want to talk about Simpalo.
Yeah, I can tell you something about Simpalo.
Can you?
Yeah.
What is Simpalo?
Oh, man, I'm not going to tell you all that. But I will tell you that earlier this week, I went to a pre-construction meeting.
Yeah.
And these guys were kind of giving me a hard time because I just walked in with my iPad. And that's it. I didn't even have a pen. They passed around the sign-in paper, and I was like, can I borrow someone's pen to sign in? I didn't know that I was, stepping back in time here, but nah, just kidding. That actually happens at every pre-construction meeting that you ever go to. There's a sign-in. I'm just dumb and forgot a pen. But anyways, so they were giving me a hard time because I didn't bring a pen. I was like, I have everything on my iPad. Like I just log into Simpalo and I have all of my stuff for the job. Why do I need to bring anything else? Right. And then they proceeded to pass out like 17 and a half trees worth of paper that I just brought back and gave to Claiborne.
I think Claiborne and I were the only ones with a plan set at the pre-bid meeting that we went to.
So you were the opposite.
Yep. We had paper. I had my phone. I just used my phone. I took notes on my phone. I took pictures of the presentation that they had. And
yeah. So
that's how I do it. I did have a pen and a highlighter. I don't know why I thought the highlighter would be useful, but I thought, you know what?
Right.
In case like the black light turns on and this turns into some kind of thing.
You were way more prepared than I was. I didn't have a pen.
I don't like the feeling of having to ask for a pen.
Yeah, it was a little awkward. I was in a room of like, 40 grown people and I had to ask for a pen.
Well, this was one of the first jobs I've been to in a while where I was probably, next to Claiborne, of course, but like still the youngest guy in the room. And so I was like, I want to have all the stuff. I also was the only person with U.S. Hammer has chimed in. I like this. Welcome, whoever is behind the U.S. Hammer.
They just started following us on Instagram.
Yes. Hopefully it's Brian. Hey, Brian, our U.S. Hammer representative.
So Craig asked if we will be in Las Vegas, and we will not.
We won't.
No,
we won't be in Las Vegas. It's too tight. There's also, I'm attending a different conference in Nashville for SAM.gov's type stuff. So I'll be doing some other stuff then.
Yeah, we're doing some other stuff that week. But also, it's really hard to be gone for 2 weeks in a row.
Right.
Have kids, have a business, have all of this stuff. So
the Nashville thing for me is going to be like a day. So.
Yeah. Right.
Brian is watching.
Oh, thanks, Brian. Thanks for tuning in.
And thank you. I gave you a shout out last show about getting with me on the return label for the broken hammer so quickly, and now we're just trying to figure out how to package it to ship it back. So
yeah,
thanks for being so prompt on that. I think it was the same day that I said this thing's broken. He said, "Okay, here's your label."
Yeah, I saw it. I saw the label sitting around somewhere.
So Simpalo, there's one of the new features I think you've talked about before that I recently had the opportunity to use, which is the duplicating a takeoff.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
So I was able to duplicate what it was they wanted an option for around the pool and then one with around the pool, but the fence line to be over 15 or 20 feet or something like that. So I could do two.
Yeah.
Which obviously you could just kind of do the math and change your
materials. You could spend all that time.
Or you could just make a duplicate and draw the line 15 feet longer and move this other fence line. And so it was cool to prepare 3 different options of takeoffs for this customer. And then what it allows me to do is have a visual representation that I can present to them of the varying options.
Yeah.
Just screenshot the takeoff and send it over.
Yeah, that's a cool feature. I also thought about some other cool features that we're not going to talk about right now, but I also think that you would be into it. So
Cool.
Remind me of that later.
Yeah.
We're always, we use the thing all the time. And so it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute. It would be neat if it did this. And then we make it do that. So
Yeah, I had a list, but I quit pestering you with my list of endless improvements. I
All
thought
right.
copy and paste would be cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Copy and paste is a cool feature.
So now, one of our favorite portions of the show, featuring Miss Ilaria Pisoni, Italian word. You came in hard on that.
I know.
I got the wrong one.
And so
I didn't know who was coming. I was like, wait a minute, surprise guest.
That's how it feels.
Let's try that again. Now it's time with the lovely Ilaria Pisoni, Italian word of the week.
So
Thank you.
30
Welcome.
seconds ago, 30 seconds before y'all started that, I came up with the Italian word of the week. So in honor of Brian and US Hammer, the Italian word will be hammer.
Martello.
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 No, Dan, no. Do it again.
Man, freaking Italian. Martello. Marty.
Yeah, Marty.
Marty.
I mean that Marty over there.
It's okay.
Do it again.
Martello.
Martello.
It's a little better.
Whatever.
It's okay.
I tried.
Yes, that's all that matters.
Same as what I always get.
It's kind of similar to the Spanish word for hammer, yeah?
What's the Spanish word?
I think Matillo.
You could be right. I don't know.
I think it's Matillo, which is still similar spelling even.
Probably.
Hey, if someone watching wants to comment what the Spanish word for hammer is, please do so we can learn. All right. You ready to get into this thing? I'm kind of honestly, I'm a little bit ready to be done talking about our process. I want to talk about something else.
I before the show, I read the outline agenda and I said, I've already done this part of the show already. So I guess I have already done this in some
Wait, you read
alternate
it before?
universe. Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that you did
and I was thinking, didn't I just talk about that? Maybe I'm having a small seizure.
You know, what's interesting is I was thinking about this. So this is episode number 5 that we've talked about our process.
Yes.
So that's like, I don't know, 4 hours.
Matillo.
Yeah.
I was right.
There we go. Thanks, Chris. So this is like 4 hours that we've sat here and talked about how we do what we do. And anyways, I'm ready for it to be done. Let's move on to something else. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's knock it out.
All right. Last week, we looked at jobs to make sure we want to bid them. We did our takeoffs. We submitted the proposal and talked about follow-ups, just kind of a follow-up as to how far we got. So we did the how we get prospective jobs, right?
Yeah,
How
where the
they're
leads
coming
come
in,
from.
how we sort those, who sorts those, kind of what we look at, what we don't look at, which was not a whole lot of much. Basically just designate that it's not silt fence. And then how we input that into our system. We use monday.com on down into submittal process and bidding. We mentioned our cost of goods sold is time to multiplier. I just like skipped the talking. Multiplier. You know what I mean? You listen to the show.
You got it.
Cost of goods sold times a multiplier. And then we got into follow-ups, which we said we sucked at.
Yep, we pretty much suck at doing follow-ups, and that's where we ended it. So we're going to kind of pick up right there.
Yeah,
and
so
move
here we
forward.
are.
Yeah.
So this week,
a customer has decided that they will sign a contract with us.
Hey, Nan.
Yeah.
This is Marcos over at L&L and L&L and LLC Construction.
Uh-huh.
And I'd like
you looking to buy an L?
I'd like to proceed with that contract you sent me over for that job down there at that place.
Uh-huh. I know exactly the one you're talking about. It's from about 18 months ago. Uh-huh. Yeah. We actually went through that yesterday. Someone called and they said, oh, hey, we have an entire new group of people in our office and someone got a price from you on some job that was something. Can you, can we hire you to do that? And I was like,
yeah.
I told Claiborne, I said, yes, they can. just tell them to send us a updated layout and we'll give them a new price. No problem. We have no idea what the job even was. So, I don't know. Now Chris is just like throwing some Spanish words in here.
Just put them on there. Thank you for your participation, Chris. I appreciate that, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. So I get that all the time. Being that I've been in the position for about 2 years, and we did a lot of work more than 2 years ago that I now, get calls on, and they find me and they reference that they had a quote by somebody some other time. And
well, so in our scenario, their people were all new and they didn't even have the quote or anything.
wow.
So they just knew that we did it, is what they said.
Cool. Well, that's good.
So it was pretty
Easy
interesting.
peasy.
But yeah. All right. So a general contractor, they want to hire us.
Right.
And so
They do.
I kind of skipped all this in the notes, but that'll happen a few different ways, right? You might just get a contract that shows up in the mail, in an email, in whatever. Sometimes you have to be interviewed by general contractors. They'll call, narrow it down to 2 or 3 different subs, and then they'll call and they'll basically interview all of them to figure out, are you capable of doing this job in the time frame, to the quality, to whatever that we're looking for. And so they look at more things than just the price. That happens sometimes.
The one we just came from said this is a price-based bid acceptance program, basically. Price only. That's it.
That's all they care about.
Which is pretty cool that they designated that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you'd like to know that in the beginning, basically.
Yep. So it's, depending on how they do it is going to determine who they award the contract to, how they do it. And basically we'll get a contract one way or the other, and we'll kind of move on from there. And so the first thing that we do is we have Alyssa now been given, she has taken over. She has volunteered to do this kind of like contract admin type of role and do our billing for general contractors and things like that. And so, it's been kind of cool that I just get a contract and send it to her, and she'll go through the whole contract. She highlights any things that she has questions about or anything she thinks is odd. And when she receives the contract, she sends it over to our insurance folks so they can review at the same time as her. And so on insurance, this has got to be like the number one thing that we dispute, negotiate, whatever you want to say, is insurance.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess really like we already have the price settled by the time that there is a contract issued, right? And so there's not really much room to talk about that anymore. But yeah, basically we're talking about insurance now, and sometimes there's like endorsements in the insurance requirements in the contract and things like that were never disclosed. We just went through that a few weeks ago, and I don't know, quit a job, refused to sign a contract, whatever it was, because of insurance endorsements that they were requiring. And so that's that, like I said, that's really, one of the biggest things that we'll redline. And then you also see where they put like different coverages for, different types of insurance that doesn't even apply to us. So, it might have like, I'm going to make up some random thing, right? But it'll have like tugboat pollution insurance. I'm like, well, I don't know if you know, but we're not going to use a tugboat.
Right.
This job is 27 miles from the nearest body of water. So, there's a lot of that kind of stuff in there that I just like to put like a little note beside it that says does not apply or something like that and kind of initial it. So the insurance people, they'll review their insurance requirements, and then they send it back to us with a lot of words, and some of them I understand. And then we just make a decision like, are we basically okay with assuming the risk that the contract is asking us to assume? Yeah. The contracts are never really written in our favor. The only really things in there that are in our favor is the fact that they will pay us.
The price, right?
Right.
We will pay you this amount, just so you know.
Yeah.
We've talked about last week or a couple weeks ago about schedule, and sometimes the schedule's in there, and then sometimes the general contractor has been issued a schedule or a deadline for the project that is not outlined in the contract that they send to us.
Mhm.
And so that's something that I came across that I had no idea to even think about until it was brought to my attention. And then so I asked the contractor, of course, like, hey, what's the deadline? Some of these jobs we know from the beginning,
Mhm.
and that's discussed. And so we'd been awarded the contract, signed it, committed to do the job before I even thought to ask. I just assumed, well, no big deal. There's no schedule here, but obviously they have one. And so that was something that luckily was brought to my attention. I asked the question, and it was still had enough time to complete the job, right?
Yep. Yeah. So that's likely one of those situations where the contract that we sign says that we will abide by everything that's in the contract between them and the owner.
Exactly.
And that schedule or that deadline was in their contract, but they
Right.
never put it into ours.
And didn't supply us with the contract they signed, right? So
well,
kind of a weird.
Don't blame it on them because we probably didn't ask.
Right.
We probably just signed it and just rolled on. But yeah, no, it's weird. And I mean, it's crazy. You get such an array of things in that contract world. And,
Mhm.
You could sit there and talk specifically about the schedule. The pre-construction meeting I went to, so there's two different types of fence we're doing on the same job. One of them was on the schedule, the other was not.
Right. Yeah, this job I'm working on currently, I actually extended our contract to the general contractor.
Mhm.
So that's how that went.
Yeah.
My initial proposal had some language in it about payment terms and exclusions and inclusions, but I still thought, you know what, I'm going to be, with my previous experience of not having a contract and getting just having like a signature on a shop drawing or whatever. I don't remember what we rode with. A signature on a proposal, which seemed pretty legit. There is some language, but payment terms were not on there.
Zach took off his "Hello, my name is Zach" sticker, and the guy signed it on the back, and that's what we were rolling with.
I just gave him a high five and was like, "Heck yeah, we're gonna make some money," and then we went about our day.
Yeah,
no, but
and we did get paid. So
yeah, we did. We have been paid.
Yeah.
So lesson learned, though, man. I was like, you know what? They signed this, which has some terms outlined in it, but I'm also gonna have them sign this.
Yep.
So that's kind of a weird one. So
yep. I mean, it happens. That's the way it goes sometimes, So just I don't know, just be on the lookout, and just understand that when you get a contract from a general contractor, you're going to be taking some risk. It's just kind of like the risk that we take to do this. I don't know. There's got to be a better way to say that, but that's what I got for you.
You got any mine near miss or whatever was my closest call so far with contracts and things that weren't in contracts. I know liquidated damages is a thing that can happen sometimes or easily can be overlooked. And you got a horror story or that comes to mind where contract, you read it, thought it was cool, and then somehow figured out, oh, crud.
So I can tell you one of my favorite jobs that was a complete nightmare. So they got ready for us to do some fence around a tennis court, and he calls and he says, "Hey, we need you to come set these posts next week." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's cool. Like the material is not here. It's going to take us a while to get it." Da 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 da. And he said, "Oh well, pull out your contract and flip to page 643, and you'll see right there it says you were scheduled to start this job 3 weeks ago. Where's your material?"
Right.
That's not ordered. Right. And so not really on them, not really. I mean, probably on me because it was in the contract, but also they could have, done a decent job at managing their project and let us know a little bit ahead of time. So that's why I think it's good practice to, and now since COVID, people ask a lot, right? People will ask what your lead time is on stuff because I mean, a bunch of people got burned during COVID and there was jobs that the contract would be awarded for a job and say completion is in 6 months. And some of the items required for the job would take 9 months to get.
Right. Exactly.
And so, I mean, nowadays people do a little bit better job about asking for lead times, but that was a situation. They didn't ask for the lead time. They just dangled that contract schedule right over my head. And we wound up putting sleeves in there. And then the sleeves that we gave them first were steel, because that's what they asked for. They didn't like the steel sleeves. Now, keep in mind, these steel sleeves, we went out and bought raw steel that was the size that they wanted it to be, had it galvanized, took it out there to them, and nah, that's not going to work. And so then we had to buy sonotube and put in there. Okay, and that's cool. Sonotube, it was fairly inexpensive. The steel was expensive, but we wound up using them for bollards, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Sonotube got rained on.
So the same assistant project manager that was assisting to manage his first project, I later found out, and I believe this fella got fired throughout the course of construction on this job, but he then made the concrete company come out there and pour the concrete in the rain around the sonotube so they all crumpled like a can. And then we had to core drill all the holes out. So that's a pretty horror story. You know, that's $7,000-8,000 right there. That was because we didn't have the post sitting here when they wanted us to. And it indeed was in the contract.
Right.
But there was no conversation about it. And so you go through stuff like that, and you kind of learn a little bit, you know, and so also on that job, I don't remember any time that we've ever paid liquidated damages. I definitely would not say that it has not happened, but on that job, this is where it gets really fun, right? Because you'll pay liquidated damages if the owner charges liquidated damages to the general contractor.
Right.
Okay. And in this situation, the owner did not charge them to the general contractor. However, the general contractor charged us for a superintendent having to stay on the job site.
Right.
And I'll tell you, that is not cheap. That is more than the liquidated damages on the job would have been. So, yeah, I've paid that penalty of having a superintendent stay here for a few weeks longer than what the general contractor thought they should have.
Right.
And
we talked a good bit about scheduling, and I maybe too much, but I mean, how would you, to me, it seems like I would email with the project manager, maybe even copy whoever I sold the job to on that and say, hey, it's getting past, it's already middle of the month and we don't have, when is this part coming up, kind of a thing. And maybe get some kind of email documentation of like, oh, we won't need you for 2 weeks, which shows, you know, the date of outside of the completion date or whatever, or something like that. I mean, how would you go about trying to amend the schedule that you signed in the original contract?
I don't. I just make sure that I'm ready on the date that we're scheduled.
Right. There you go.
Right. And then from that point moving forward, if they're not ready for us, that's okay.
Sure.
But you want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row and you're ready to go to work, whatever days on that contract, to avoid that whole, oh, you're a piece of crap, you're supposed to be ready on this day kind of conversation. So, yeah, I mean, there's nothing, I don't, if you're worried about the deadline of the job and you say, like you're afforded 21 days to do the job, right? And you think it's going to take all 21 and the deadline is exactly at the end of you working, and they push you back 2 or 3 days or a week or whatever on your start date, that's when you need to address it.
Right.
You need to like send them an email and be like, hey, we were ready to start on this day. We think it's going to take us the full 21 days to do the job. Now you're going to be 3, 5, 7 days, whatever, late on your completion date. Right. And so from that perspective, yeah, it's important. But I mean, if you're not near the end of the job, then I mean, I wouldn't sweat it too much, you know? But I will say on this, again, I keep going back to this pre-construction meeting I went to, but hey, I just went there yesterday. So, but in there, he passed out a schedule and he says, hey, I want everyone in here, look at the schedule, look at your scope, see if there's anything conflicting that somebody else is doing on the job site at the same time. And then also tell me if you don't agree with the amount of time that we've given you. And you have 7 days to report back to us if you don't agree with the schedule we've afforded you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how one job that comes to mind, they had this pre-construction meeting, and basically what they did was they gave everybody like different color sticky notes. And they had, I don't know, some kind of boards or calendars or something going around the room in there. And they basically had everybody write down like the different steps of the process and go start putting them on sticky notes. And they, like, with all of us in the room, they built out their schedule with the subcontractors in the room and figured out how to get the job done by their deadline.
That's pretty cool.
That was cool. A lot of people would think, oh, that's a stupid pain in the butt waste of time. But actually, it's pretty cool because then you're able to tell them, well, it's going to take me this long to get my material. It's going to take me this long to do the install.
Instead of extending you a schedule that they made from made
just
up,
guessing. Right.
maybe. Maybe or maybe not having had any experience with the process of doing the fence
Yep.
or whatever portion of the project. Yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, I like when I don't really like the fact that like it takes you a lot more paperwork doing jobs for really thorough general contractors, but I do like that they are thorough. So, like for scheduling and kind of the foresight of things
Right.
that are going to be required and possible conflicts and things like that. I do like. And I think so. We'll get to submittals is the next thing on the list, right? And so I didn't put this in there because I didn't want to get too deep off into any of these things. Really, I thought we would kind of just give a little overview. But with the submittal process, I still think it's a good idea that you give a schedule, right? So a part of your submittal package should be a schedule that shows lead times for material, installation times, and just kind of break down your schedule and turn that in with your submittal. Uh, Maybe isn't really like it's not the traditional sense of a submittal, I guess. But I mean, I think having that record somewhere and also just letting them know, like, here's how long it's going to take. And then another thing I think is really good is if you look at the job and you kind of think about what's it going to be like to install this job? What potential issues am I going to run into? If I'm putting a cantilever gate or a slide gate here, what's the grade look like underneath the gate? Right. And if this is a secure facility that's not going to want a 10-inch gap underneath their gate, let's go ahead and address that on the front end. That's an example. That was a real life scenario that I lived through.
Yeah, I think we come in against that one a good bit.
Well, so by me looking at the job 6 or 8 months in advance or a
Right.
year in advance, I was able to point out to the contractor, like, hey, you're going to wind up with a big gap underneath this gate. And they redid the grading plan for that area to make sure that the road was flat under where that gate sat. So there wasn't a gap.
Nice.
So just kind of looking down the road a little bit and, taking that approach is good. Also do all that, like, while you're doing submittals, you have to kind of get into the job a little bit with your submittal package. So you may as well just get all off in there and kind of look at what issues you're going to run into, look at your schedule, things like that. Right. We good? You want to talk about submittals now? You ready?
Love them.
All right.
I
So
love submittals.
do you? They're fun,
Yeah.
aren't they?
Yeah, I think they're fun.
I mean, it depends on what you're doing. I don't really care about doing submittals for a 6-foot tall chain link fence, but
No,
I
I like doing the kind of extensive stuff where, there is grade change or
Yeah.
solving problems or, how to
Mhm.
orient parking gates and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. Because a lot of that stuff is not really spelled out real well in the plan set.
Yeah. Or it's
And
just wrong.
right. And we've already probably before we submit, I mean, I'm not making submittals before submitting the proposal, but what I am doing is doing some problem solving to kind of see what I think it's going to take to accommodate the situation, right? Like whether it needs a swing gate or a slide gate or it's going over a curb or
Yep.
some stuff like that. And so that like problem solving aspect, also getting to do, an elevation versus a profile or cross section or whatever. I like that. I like drawing too,
Yeah.
and all that stuff. So I enjoy that part. I don't really like when I get them back with a bunch of markups, but that's part of the game, like
Yeah.
it feels like, oh, I've completed my piece. And then someone walked by and was like, yeah, missed a spot or what,
Right.
whatever. So
Right. Yeah, I agree. The submittal process is fun. It's cool to sit down and draw stuff out and kind of plan, like a more official plan of the job. I would say when you're bidding the job, you need to have a pretty decent understanding of what you're getting into and what
right.
it's going to take to do it. And so, like my process for bidding, that's what I do, is because I bid a lot of weird stuff, right? I bid a lot of crazy jobs. I bid big jobs. I bid a lot of stuff. And so when I look at a job that's like, holy crap, how are we going to accomplish this? Then I just sit there and I figure out, okay, in the real world, if we're doing this job, we're going to have to accomplish these tasks. Boom, 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 in order to get this job done.
Right.
And so I like to kind of like have an idea of a plan and stuff like that on the front end when I'm bidding.
Yeah, we talked a bit about that. I think the last episode or in when we were talking about my bidding process or something like that, about how we'll do kind of like a rough mock-up of sorts to kind of figure out how to accomplish the job
Yeah.
in order to bid it.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And, but not go too far. Also, I said again, I want to say again, if you're doing it and you're doing like a quick mock-up thing, do it to scale then.
Yeah.
Because you're going to probably go back and reuse this kind of template that you started for your submittals.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I can't think of one where we have actually afforded. I can actually. I can think of one where I've given submittals along with the job just because it was the exact same profile of another job we did previously, but I did not draw them specifically for that job.
Right.
So it was handy. There it was. It was easy to be like, this is the profile of the fence that we're offering.
Right. But you didn't actually draw
Didn't
it.
draw 'em.
I know one job that I drew submittals for because in the bid documents, it said you had to turn in shop drawings with the bid. But it was like a really fast turnaround job. And so I think they just didn't want to wait 3 weeks or whatever for you to get your drawings done. So I kind of along those same lines, like I very rarely am going to start going through the submittal process unless I have a contract.
Right.
I did it. I've done it sometimes. Any of these things, like we cheat on sometimes, right? It depends on the situation. These are kind of just like the goal.
Exactly.
Right. Not necessarily like a set in stone rule. It's just kind of what we try to go by. But yeah, like I said, I'll rarely start submittals without having a contract in hand. And even after you've done submittals, remember that contract you signed that protected the general contractor and the architect and the owner and all of that. They can void the contract.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if something doesn't work out or something comes up or whatever, I mean, they can just void the contract. Normally, if I've seen a contract that was voided, it's because there was an error in the bidding process. We talked about one that was voided because of an insurance dispute just a little bit ago, or maybe just the whole job was put on hold or canceled or something like that.
Right.
And so, there are like honest situations that happen for voiding a contract, and then there's other situations. So, anyways, I have done submittals without a contract, and then I've later found out that they hired someone else to do the job, and it makes me wonder, did they turn in my submittals and then I just pass them along to the other fence guy that did the work?
Right. Extend them to the shop that's doing the fab work or whatever.
Yeah. They're like, who does really good submittals? Dan. Let's trick him into thinking that he's got the job so we can get those submittals.
Always gives us super great submittals before getting the job.
Right.
Dan's free submittal service.
Right. Yeah. So
this show is brought to you by Dan's free submittal services.
There's no phone number for it because you don't need to call it. Okay. But yeah,
999. Don't make the same mistakes we did. That's what the phone number is.
So submittals are your opportunity to really show the contractor, owner, design team, whatever, what you're providing. And that, maybe it's just because there wasn't a complete picture of what you were asked to provide on the front end.
Right. One that we're looking at now, the footers are not clearly called out. And not that this is really on us, but the rebar cages aren't really called out for the footers. There's a mow strip that's kind of like ambiguous, I guess, in the drawing. It says like, put some concrete here, kind of, and so if we were the ones to be responsible for the footers, which in this case we will be, we would outline that. That's some areas for clarity. I do want to say, while we're talking about submittals, I started out by using SketchUp as a free program. You can get a license for it, I think. Well, now everything's subscription, so now it's changed over to subscription. When I first started using it, I started on the web-based version, which is pretty awesome. There's a ton of YouTubes for it. And then started to use that. It also has like a paper space where you can do a 2D view of your 3D model, which I started out by modeling everything 3D, and then just doing kind of like a 2D view of that, and then using the portion of SketchUp called layout. And that's what I used, which kind of got me, I guess, acclimated or get a little experience to be able to kind of jump over to AutoCAD and use that with a little bit of ease. I guess, you showed me a little, but it was kind of very similar. So the transition was pretty easy.
Yeah. AutoCAD's not too bad. It takes a little bit of time to learn it. And, but I'm a really big advocate for people learning AutoCAD for doing submittals, just because, like, no matter what you run up against, there's a way that you can do it. There's some software options out there that'll do some submittals. So like, maybe chain link, wood, a little bit of ornamental options, something like that. But I like AutoCAD. And then once you have a library, so like you were talking about, where you bid a job and you just send them a drawing that you already had. Once you have a library built out, then you kind of have a decent bit of the work done. No matter what, it seems that just about every job that I have to do submittals on, I have to draw something. Either I can't find the last time that I did it, or it's a little bit different than last time or something like that. But yeah, I mean, once you kind of have a handful of drawings done, like you've made it a decent bit of the way there. So so word of warning is there's some contracts out there that say even if you do submittals, the submittals are approved and you install the fence according to your submittals, you still can get in trouble if you don't meet the specs.
Right.
So you need to make sure that when you're doing your submittals, you are meeting or exceeding what they specified. And again, if it's something where it's like, hey, put in a 8-foot tall black vinyl coated chain link fence with windscreen over here, there's no specs, right? Go to the spec book, make sure there's not. But I mean, there's probably not any specs on it. And so you can, at that point, you just want to tell them what you're doing. You want to be clear about that.
Right. So some of the things we'll outline in the submittals will be those specs, like you're saying. So we'll reference the plans. We'll outline the specs. We'll obviously do dimensions, sizes, weights, the size and shape of the footers, basically as detailed as possible. Also, for me, I'm in the process of doing a submittal. I'm also thinking about how this is going to convert to a shop drawing at least in the ornamental fabrication realm.
Yeah.
Right. We don't really give the installers a shop drawing. I just thought about that.
I give them my submittals.
You do?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, that's what you're using right now on the ornamental job that y'all have been working on. I mean, those are just my submittals that I turned in. And so I basically try to draw what, we could hand to someone in the shop and they can build fence with too.
Exactly. So that's my point.
Yeah.
I think on those, sometimes I'll take the submittal and I'll kind of redact some information to make it more clear. And I may impose like a cut list or something on there, depending on how it's going.
Yep. Sometimes you have to do something a little different. And sometimes I've drawn additional details that would go to the people in the shop just to make sure that like, hey, this is how I want this joint to go together or something, which isn't included in my submittal package. But I would say go ahead and try to make your work orders. So whether that's shop drawings or whether that's, any other type of work order that you're going to use, I would try to get those done while you're going through the submittal process. Again, you're in the job. Go ahead and try to knock some stuff out. Because if you come back to that job 8 months down the road, then having something that you created that you understand is going to be beneficial.
Right. Instead of like, oh man, how did we plan on doing this or whatever,
Yep. So I think it's good to just go ahead and try to get some of the stuff done. Right. And it is hard though. Like it's hard to do work. So I think about, there's a job that we're doing right now. And right now, I know I said that very passionately. Good. I don't know. There's a job we're doing right now. And like the first thing we had to do was go out and start doing some removal. And so we kind of just had like a lot of the information on the work order was the same, right? But we had to kind of tweak it a little bit for the removal part. And so then when we go back to do an installation of one of 2 or 3 different types of fence that we're going to put on there, like we still have kind of like the basic information on the work order is going to translate over, but we will still have to prepare a few of them. And so if you go into the job thinking, oh, I'm going to go do all 10,000 feet at once, and then they call you and they say, we're ready for 1,500 feet, or we're, ready for this or ready for that, then that's going to be up to you if you're going to make an individual work order for every time they go out, or kind of just have like a master one. But all right. So let's get into order of material, man. So and I think the proper way to do it is to get your submittals in, get them approved, and then order the material, right? You don't want to order material and then come back and the design team's like, oh, wait a minute. No. You put 40 weight on here, and really what we want is schedule 40.
Oh, right. For sure.
So now you've ordered 10,000 feet of worth of pipe, right, for a job, and it's not the right stuff. So,
Yep.
And sure, maybe that's the way it was spec'd was 40 weight. Maybe that's the way that your proposal was written was 40 weight. But at the end of the day, you're going to go back and say, hey, okay, if you want to go to schedule 40, here's what your change order is. Right. And that's cool. Like you can still go through that process, but it's going to be really hard to do when you have all the pipes sitting on the yard that you ordered before your submittals were approved. So, like I said, best thing to do, I think, is to wait for your submittals to be approved. And once again, man, kind of circling back, like there's some times we have to cheat that a little bit. It's not ideal.
Right. That's right. Because for the very reason that you said, when it could be like, oops.
Right. Now it's installed.
Right.
And you're like, oh, crap. A good example of when we might have to cheat it I came up with was like temporary fence. I mean, that's normally done immediately at the very beginning of the job, and you might not have time to wait for submittals. And depending on the situation that you're doing, your temporary fence might actually be like equivalent to a permanent fence that you would put on somebody else's property.
Right.
And so, not all temporary fence is what I would think of as temporary fence.
So, and maybe a way around that, if I don't see like how someone's going to really beat you up over the temporary fence not meeting spec, but if they did for some reason, you might want to, a way you could kind of navigate that is extend them a credit, a discount, if that's the issue, wouldn't it be weird if they asked for 40 weight to begin with, you put it in, and then they went back and said, we want the light wall and we don't want to pay you full price? Well,
sometimes that happens. The project is over budget. We need to save 20%. Oh, let's take some out here.
And that's that would be not good.
Especially if you had it installed, or had the material in the yard. Yeah, for sure.
Right. So
yeah, it does indeed happen that way sometimes. There's one facility in particular that I'm thinking of right now that we had to go back and forth through several different revisions of submittals in order to get a temporary fence approved that was just not even a part of like their security line. It was just around a construction site, and they still were super difficult about getting the submittal approved for the temporary fence. So,
wow.
Yeah, it happens, man. All kinds of crazy things happen. And like every single thing that we talk about, there's a million different possible scenarios for a contract, right? There's a million possible scenarios for things that can happen whenever you go to start working on or turn in submittals.
Right. For sure.
And I mean, we've seen a lot of them. All right. So now we ordered the material because our submittals were approved.
Yay. The material's here.
And then the truck shows up.
First things first.
What's that?
Verify you got what you ordered.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty important.
Verify your order. Is there a problem? Wall thickness? Maybe it's crappy.
Yeah.
I mean, we've gotten tube before that the seams were splitting. Or just like separating at spots. And sometimes it's hard to tell because like the ones on the outside may look great, but definitely check the order. I had, I can't remember what I ordered a bunch of aluminum square tubing. It was supposed to have radius corners. It was not a sharp corner. So 90-degree sharp corner, which just doesn't match the fence. So that's the reason being. We use a radius corner steel tube for the fence. So we need a radius corner aluminum tube for the gate. They sent the square. The guys offloaded it. It was like, a giant order of aluminum tubing. And then there it was. And luckily I was able to return it. But again, it was a pain in the butt. Someone just thought they got the stuff and we're ready to cut. Because a lot of times when it comes, like I said, yay, the material's here. We're celebrating the arrival because we're ready to start cutting it up.
Right.
Right. So that's, just one reason to check the material and make sure you got what you need.
So that scenario also could play into something else when you got the material and it got sat to the side for a month and then you went to start working on it and you're like, oh crap, this was wrong. So then you call your supplier and you're like, hey, you remember that stuff that you sent me a month ago? Something's wrong with it. Right. And so that just kind of, it's a little bit more difficult, right? It may or may not work out for you coming back a month later, but it's definitely going to be more difficult.
Even worse, it got ran over by someone loading some other material near it or whatever, which we have had some stuff get damaged before that was unreturnable. So
now it's wrong and we ran over it and we're just stuck with it. So I was also thinking, let's say hypothetically you ordered some black vinyl chain link material and then someone had to unload it. Like, so the truck is on the way here. It stops at 3 places before it gets here, right? Someone else had to unload your material in order to get to theirs and then reload yours, and it's damaged during that process.
Right.
Right. Where it's damaged by the guy driving the forklift or the person driving the forklift at the supply house or whatever. So, you always want to just kind of like take a look at it, make sure that the specs and everything are right, but and that it's not damaged and all of that stuff. Store it somewhere it's not going to be damaged, as we've kind of, talked about a little bit. And then now that you have the material, you can submit a bill for stored material. Make sure that you understand how to do that. And there should be some stuff in the contract about it. If not, just call somebody from the general contractor's office and they'll explain to you what you have to do it. You're going to have some sort of insurance that covers like property of others. And then
sometimes you'll have to produce the invoice, sometimes not. It just depends. I think to be forthcoming or transparent or in the right, you should have paid for it, right? Because I mean, that's the idea here. So you're being reimbursed for the material you've paid for.
Well, so actually my idea is that I receive material, I give you a bill for it, I receive the money from you, and then I pass that along to the supplier. So I never have to come out of pocket any money at all for the material. That's my dream.
Ideally, however, if they may ask you to produce the invoice showing it has been paid. So
Yep. Normally they're going to want, a lot of times proof of payment, right? So a check stub and then a waiver signed by the supplier saying that they've received payment on whatever invoice or, however that works.
So now we've got material. We presumably can bill for stored material, which ties back into our many talks on cash flow. Obviously, keeping the job going is part of the process after having gotten the job, right?
Well, and keeping the cameras on is another part, right? You got to pay the electric bill.
That's right. So preparing for the job. Here we are. So we've already talked a little bit about submittals, and in that process is a good opportunity to go ahead and create a work order. Depending on what I've submitted in the bidding process, I pretty much already have a work order ready. By this point, for the most part, I have one ready. Depends. Sometimes I'll kind of make a different one than I'll use in-house. It'll basically be the same thing with a little bit different information. If we're using a sub, I'll add like a PO to it so that they can reference our agreement to pay them for what they want. We have kind of like handshake agreements with a lot of our subs because we've been doing work with them for a long time, but I do extend to them basically like a quote with the PO number and the dollar value that they committed to work for on there.
So a handshake agreement to me is something in writing, and that can be a text message.
Right.
So frequently when I'm talking to subs about installing a job, they'll give me a price verbally over the phone, in person, whatever that may be, and I'm immediately going to text it or email it to them or something like that.
Most of my conversations happen via text or via email, but I do also extend this when they go out to do the job. Then I put it on our work order that we've used for residential jobs forever, and I'll put the dollar value and my PO on there to reference. That way, when it's time to be paid, they can accounts payable can reference the PO if they need to talk to me about what that was, and the dollar value is right there on their work order, so they are like, we're all on the same page.
Yeah, so that's the big thing about the PO there is whenever someone gets a bill, right, and they have to write a check, all of our POs are in monday.com. And so now the person who's going to write the check can go to Monday, look at the PO board, look up your PO number, see who it was to and the amount that you agreed to, and make sure that the bill matches that. And if the bill is not the same, then they know, oh, wait a minute, we've got something to talk about here.
That's right. Also, the job number at that point, I will have added the job number. So if anything comes up, it's all attached and all trackable.
Same thing with the bill, right? If they're going to write a check to pay a sub for a job, then they got to know what job to apply it to. So there you go. Now you need the job number.
That's right. So preparing the work order, getting that ready. Now's a good. You got something to add to work order?
Yeah. So in my world, work orders are a little different, right? Because I'm not bidding a job off of that kind of like work order proposal form that we have. I'd really like to show people, right? I wish I had one I could just like hold up or something. But I'm not really bidding jobs off of that, right? Because I'm just working off a proposal. And so I do kind of like transpose my proposal into the work order form because that's what the crews are used to seeing is that work order form. And, if you hand somebody a piece of paper that's a different format, it really doesn't go that well a lot of times. So, we try to keep everything. And I mean, here I am kind of like, I don't know, being a little sarcastic about that, but like, I'm a pretty big advocate for everything being the same.
Right.
So yeah, I'll basically like transpose that proposal onto a work order. And, there's some extra information that I need on the work order that's not on the proposal. Like the footing sizes are normally not on the proposal. The site contact certainly was not on the proposal. So
No, because as we talked about, yours may just say estimator 1 and 2 or whatever.
Yeah, it just says estimator. So no matter who you are, your name is just estimator.
Right.
But yeah, so by that point, like we actually know who the company is that's paying us to do
We've
it.
been assigned prospectively, have met the superintendent or whoever our site contact is. And things of that nature. Sometimes we don't actually have the address of the location of the job.
Sometimes there's not an address. It's just like at the corner.
Job name, and maybe we know the city or something. So we just kind of like, whatever that is, South Central Square or whatever the job name is.
I went through that thing yesterday. I had to go find the address for some job, and I went to the plans, and there was no address on the plans, and I was like, "Oh crap!" So yeah. Anyways, so actually, the reason that I had to go find the address was for the locate.
Oh, that's a good reason to know the address, isn't it? And how do you proceed with locates?
Oh man, I just tell somebody to do it.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah, because
I'll get right on.
I don't like it.
I also tell someone to do it, but I do have someone go mark it with white paint, which we talked about. Sometimes by this point we may have put some paint down, but really right before the locate, the day we call it in or shortly thereafter, because it takes around here, it takes about 3 days, 3 business days to get the locate clear. Maybe not. That's just a kind of general rule of thumb. So I'll send them out the day that we call it in or the day just after that to remark and lay it out so that because a lot of times, like on these bigger things, they're like, where do we locate? And you're like, the whole thing.
Well, yeah.
But basically to have some perimeter, helps them to understand where they're going.
I did that once and they said, "Sir, do you realize that's a 950-acre piece of property?" I said, "Okay, like I need the whole thing located. I don't know what you want me to tell you."
Right.
There's temporary fence running all through the entire property and like little pieces here and there. How am I supposed to do anything other?
Sure.
But
here's a good one. I love this next. Is that good on locates? I think that's good. There's pretty self.
Everybody knows how to call in a locate, I think, right? If you've done fence ever, hopefully you've called in a locate.
Yeah. And I'm keeping up with mine. I have a specific calendar and Outlook that's called locates, and I'll just drag it from the day that it supposedly clears until the day that, not the end date, but what is the renew date, because that's a little bit different. If you don't need it, if you don't think you're going to need to renew it, then just drag it to the end date. But that's how I do it.
Yeah. So we have in our GC active jobs board on Monday, there's like a little date range thing set up for when the locate's good.
Cool.
So, but yeah, it's important to track that stuff because it'll get away from you. Right.
Right. And then this ties into the next thing, reviewing the site before sending a crew. You may rescind your crew and the locate hasn't cleared.
Yeah.
Or it expired.
Right. So speaking of just telling someone to call the locate in, Alyssa says that she finds it easier to do them online than calling.
I find it easier to ask Donnie to do it.
I find it easier to ask Lynn to do it myself. Right. But I wanted to do the online thing, and then the wall that I ran into that way was they're like, "Oh, you have to go through this hour training." And I said, "No, forget about it. I'm never doing it."
I did it. Alyssa actually turned me on to it, and I did it, and it was okay for the time that I was doing it. And then Donnie is just willingly taking over that part of things for me. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
So luckily, thank you, Donnie. Thanks, Donnie, that Donnie has that availability to do that.
I can see the value of the Alyssa said she didn't do the training.
I didn't do an hour-long training.
How do y'all get away with that? Because they told me to log.
You know what else I didn't get was a T-shirt.
What?
You're supposed to get some kind of a T-shirt.
You get a T-shirt?
Oh, I might have watched a video on YouTube. I think they just say, go to this link and watch this video or something.
And that's all the training?
I think so. I did answer some questions and I went through all the process. And then they called me on the phone to verify, I think, and they asked me my T-shirt size.
And you never got it. Someone else asked our T-shirt sizes, and we never got anything from them either.
Weird.
Yeah, it is weird. So, anyways, so we the locate. Honestly, if I call in a locate, I pick up the phone and I call them.
Right.
Like that's how I do it. I've never gone through the online stuff.
The last one I did was online. It wasn't that bad.
It seems like, why is there not a way that I can go online? There's a satellite image of the property. I draw a box or lines or whatever where I want it located, and that's it.
They have that feature, but it was like created in 1989.
I know, it's a piece of crap.
And basically, I got so frustrated. I'm like, I don't know how to locate. I don't get it. I don't know how to do the range. I don't know how to do.
Wait a minute. Are you feeling a new addition to Sao Paulo?
Oh, locate map.
That would be cool.
That integrates with 811.
We just sell that to all of the utility locate state people or whatever.
Why does the government have like the worst technology?
Why their websites are terrible. Oh my goodness. That is a very interesting thing. Name me a government website that you've been on that was not terrible. Go ahead. All right. So anyways, we did locates, right? Everybody knows locates, like I said, but we sat here and talked about it for a while. Review the site. So Zach, you kind of went down that and I like reeled us back into locates, I think. So to me, the Seth says copy and paste for online locates because you wanted copy and paste. And
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good one. All right. So for me, what happens is the superintendent says, "Oh man, we're ready for you. We need you out here on Monday." And you go out there on Monday and they're like, "Oh no. Hey, excuse me, Mr. Superintendent, do you think you can move those 817 yards of dirt that are laying in the fence line?"
That's pretty much the biggest one that I have. Like it's always grading.
I know.
Always grading or like clearing,
Yeah.
They were like, we went out to go lay it out prior to the locate. And we're like, dude, there's like 15 foot of woods here. Not just like saplings and shit you can walk through. Like this is legit tree line. There's a tree line in the fence line.
There's a forest
in the fence line.
Yeah.
Right. So, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. And that happens a lot of times. I think we talked about it on the show a few weeks ago. Maybe it's been 6 weeks or 2 months or something like that ago, where a superintendent was like, "Oh, I need you out here on this day." And the installers went out there and the superintendent told them just this. "Oh, I just wanted to meet the installer."
Wow.
What? Oh man, you want to talk about somebody that I'd like to kick in the shin? Oh my goodness. That was madness. And he's like, "Oh, no, I know we ain't ready for you. I just wanted to meet the installer."
That's cool.
Get out of here, you freaking Yahoo. So, anyways, yeah, it's a lot cheaper and easier to send a person in a pickup truck to go out there and look at the site and make sure it's actually ready. So you don't go out there with a whole 40-foot trailer loaded down with stuff and they say, "Oh, yeah, we hadn't done the dirt work over there. Just pull a string off the curb and the sidewalk and then find the square root of the fall and add 2. And that's the grade for your fence."
We had that. They were like, that spot right there, that 1x1 square is going to be the final grade. So just work off that.
Right.
And we're like, what about the areas that are high? Like, how do I put the fence in?
I'll just kick it out of the way. It'd be all right.
Man, it was wild. So that was a crazy one for sure. They were like, this point and that point that's outside the property line on the sidewalk over there in the public walkway is the 2 points that we shot for grade.
Nah, man, they do some crazy stuff like that, and grade is a big one.
So we just kind of pretended to work, basically, is what I did.
Oh, that sounds like it was a profitable use of everyone's time.
I would say, and I wouldn't say pretended. I would say we set posts, right? Which is a little dangerous because, they'll run them over and knock them down. But it was a residential property. They weren't going to be able to drive machines on the property. So they were going to be doing all this work by hand.
Well,
right?
When they run them over, they cost $10,000. Those replacements, because we have to overnight them from New York City.
Right. That's right.
To get them back here tomorrow. And so they get pretty expensive.
But those guys were cool. They weren't weird about it. It was just a weird request, you know. It was one of those
Yeah.
where the project was nearing the end and somebody forgot to get the fence, and then they're like, "Oh God, it's time for the fence. Come on in and just do it as fast as you can," and that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
The bottom line is, man, they're just in a rush. And they're just like, figure it out. Please help me. I need you to do something a little bit weird, a little creative, whatever that is. Please help me get this thing done.
Right.
Right.
Those are
Except
cool. I
except
mean,
they just won't come out and say that. Like they want to give you some nonsense or whatever excuses a lot of times, you know? But
so now we are already into installation a good
yeah, we've been
bit, which
talking
is
about it.
where the dirt's all crazy and you get out there and the things aren't done, or they want you to do something on top of some other trade, or
But man, sometimes you show up on a job site, it's wide open, the grass is cut, and they're just ready.
yeah, that's nice.
Right. And then you go out there and you just put in fence and they're like, hey, they call you once every 3 weeks and ask you how you're doing and how it's going out there.
Isn't that nice?
It is. It's cool when you get on jobs like that, you know, and you can just call and get a concrete truck there because they're right down the street and all your locates are cleared on time. Your materials all here. Everything. You do get them like that sometimes.
I have a hard time remembering those.
I know. They're not very memorable. The crazy ones are memorable. So I was thinking about a specific job when I was saying that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good. That's good.
Yeah. We did like 5,000 or 6,000 feet of, I think, like 9-foot overall chain link. And it was just an empty lot. They went out there and did some dirt work and like prepped for building a building down the road sometime. And there's not even plans or anything for the building that they were going to build, but I guess they just wanted to spend some money.
Is it
I
on
don't know.
Sweeney?
No.
I saw a site like this yesterday, and it was like prepped. They even landscaped the area at the road.
Yeah.
And then, so it's like just a big commercial space that they ran fence around, I guess.
They just cleaned it up a little bit.
And then put a beautiful fence. I mean, it would have been a joy to work there, just saying. So,
yeah, no, that wasn't the one.
That's cool, though.
No, but I mean, sometimes it goes like that, you know?
That's true.
But yeah, like we said, those aren't super memorable. So the note that I have here is deal with the things that come up through the process of installation. And that's really what you got to do. You just got to deal with it because what else are you going to do? You can't go home and cry in the corner.
Right? I do.
Yeah.
And then I go back and deal with it. Right.
Sometimes
take a few minutes, sit in the truck in the AC and like, you know, chill for a minute. Cause I think that's the hard part. It's like, if it seems real serious in the moment, it seems stressful. Obviously, anything with performance related or financial related, you know, for those of us who aren't the owners of the company, for me at least, there's the stress of like this is my career. This affects my employment, and so the stress of that can be quite overwhelming sometimes, especially if I'm responsible for the mistake.
Yeah.
Or I'm young in this, so to speak. I don't know. I've not encountered this. I don't know how to proceed. I think I was kind of making a joke about the crying in the corner, but taking a moment before you react or respond to some kind of trying information or, you know, hiccup in the process, I think is very important. You know,
oh, you shouldn't just like go into full blown panic mode and
start
freak out.
Calling everyone you know to help you fix the problem or whatever. No, don't do that.
Oh, okay.
I've done that.
Yeah.
You know, and
we did that yesterday. Almost crushing at times. It is crushing at times.
Yesterday was a good example. You know? So I found out about the mistake the day before, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna kind of relax here and not just freak out about this. It was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I thought, you know what? Spend some time with this idea, see what's going on, see a way to navigate through this, you know?
Yeah. I didn't find out about it then.
Right.
I found out about it yesterday.
Yeah.
And then I went, holy crap. Oh, said wonderfully, Zach.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. I concur. Except sometimes you don't have time and you have to freaking do it right now and you got to get it done.
I think that's all
just in your mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't know how many times I've just like knee-jerk reactioned and then kind of been, I don't know, about maybe embarrassed about, not that anyone really saw anything weird, but it's like, I was like, damn, I was really bent out of shape in those 4 hours yesterday when I was scrambling to correct a mistake that maybe is not as big as I thought it was. Right.
Yeah.
And like, this specific thing, we designated a number value and it was going to be this, and oh my God, and that's how that's going to land and who that's going to affect and all this crap. And so, stuff like that happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. We went through the whole thing, man. And guess what? At the end of it, we the initial thing that we talked about doing is the thing that we are
Right.
doing.
Yeah. And I
And-
don't think it's going to be as costly or labor intensive or as big of a deal. Like the mistake's still the
No,
mistake, right?
I like
it
how
doesn't-
we're just sitting here talking to the world in like super vague terms and nobody knows what we're talking
who
about.
cares? They know they've been in the experience. They have their own version of this. That's what this is about,
Y'all get the gist. All right, so let's tie a ribbon on this thing, man.
Love it. Oh, I'm looking forward to that day.
On this show and this job. So now we're doing some billing and closeout.
Yes.
Right. So we've already billed for stored material at the beginning. We've been submitting monthly progress billings. And now we get to the end and it's time to just submit the final bill.
Yeah.
Right. And so you'll submit a final bill, and then I normally have to submit a second bill for the retainage on it. I don't know. Maybe it can go on the same one. I've always done too. And then, you have warranty documents. Make sure all your waivers are tidied up.
We had one we submitted not that long ago, and then they followed up with us like some months later, and they're like, "Hey, are you going to submit a bill for the retainage?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Unfortunately. That's why having software and automations and processes and all of this stuff is super important.
Right.
Have a log that has all of your jobs, some way you can visually look at it and you can see, okay, I've billed 95% of this job. Well, wait a minute. Why haven't we billed the last 5%? Hey, Zach, why have we not billed the last 5%? Oh, that's just retainage.
That's retainage, boss.
All right, well, let's go ahead and send them that bill, And so having some place that you can see that stuff and kind of keep track of it all in the same spot is super important. And also to circle back to something I said earlier, having all of your processes, procedures, forms, everything like the same really helps with that too.
Right.
That way, you don't have to try to look in 6 different places to make sure that you build all your jobs this month. You can look at one thing in one place and make sure that you did it. So anyways, I'm done. I give up.
Our audience has applauded.
Yes, I heard that.
Victorious. I think that was me celebrating having billed, meaning the job is complete.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's that's what we do it for, right? So we can get it done and send them a bill. And
we do it for having been paid. But yes, as far as I'm concerned, I've walked us to the door, and that's as far as I really go. Then I pass it off to someone else at that point. And so for me, that is the time to crack the proverbial bottle of champagne, celebratory.
What is that
glass.
crap that you like to drink?
I don't drink crap, I don't think.
That sparkling water stuff?
I drink various sparkling liquids.
Oh, that stuff that I tried. You know what I'm talking about.
Pellegrino.
Oh, man. Yeah, you can pop one of those things open.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah.
I do that. There's a lot of sparkling waters and sparkling teas and things.
Some
of that
Pellegrino is
nature.
Italian, by the way.
Yeah.
It's spaghetti's better. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty good, man.
all right. Well, that's it, man. That's all we got. And so I don't know what we'll do next week because we won't be here. So yeah, we got to figure that out.
Episode of some sort for you guys. I appreciate everybody who tuned in.
Or we're gonna go live
Okay,
from
I'll do
Reno,
that.
Nevada. That'd be cool too.
We've done that before.
Yep.
All
right.
Thank you guys for joining in. Thanks for enduring our process of processes. And hopefully this is the end of the process segment until we start over again.
Yeah, until we do it again.
So everybody who chimed in, Chris, Seth, Alyssa, Josh, who else was up in there? Craig Eubanks stopped by, Brian of US Hammer. US Hammers are pretty beast. We put them to the test and saw what
Yep.
it would take to break one.
Yeah, we figured out how to break it.
But we used the crud out of it.
Yep, we did.
And it is now the preferred. I think the reason it endured such abuse is because it's now the preferred post driver.
Yeah, the rest of them just got shoved in the corner and
Yeah, they were
everybody
like,
fought over the hammer.
We like that one.
Oh, wait a minute. How do we say hammer?
Martello.
Everyone fought over the martello.
Martello.
Ah, whatever.
All right.
Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks. See y'all.